Hello there, fellow humans. I know it's been a while, but I'm back with a new radical video. This one is more like my first video, a response to a scientific video that I found on a channel called Second Thought. I came across it recently, and it's a pretty big science channel that talks a lot about hypothetical scenarios in astronomy. But the channel also talks about a lot of cultural stuff as well. I watched a few of this guy's videos and I thought, hey, this is pretty good. After watching a few videos, he seemed a little biased on certain claims. I noticed some subtle anti-Trump jokes. I didn't think much about it. I keep watching, and as I watched, his opinions were showing more and more. I was fine with it until I come across this. The greatest threat to existence as we know it. I wasn't sure what he was going to say, so I clicked on it. I noticed the video had more dislikes than usual. And I also see this. It didn't take long before I knew where he was going with this. I watched the video, and I knew it had to share it with you guys. Now, I'm sure several of you are leftists who think, I knew it, all you right-wing people deny science. And I'm just gonna say, no, I don't. But I'd at least appreciate it if you heard me out. I don't deny science. Just like my other videos, every source will be in the description, so check those out before blasting away in the comments. So let's get started with this video.
Imagine it's a beautiful day in April of 2017. Three children in different parts of the world are going about their daily lives as they do every day, and as their parents have done for countless generations. Meet Hiro in Japan. Hiro wants to be a successful banker one day just like his father, but right now he's more interested in spaceships and planets. Abasi lives in Kenya with his parents and grandparents. One day he wants to travel the world in his own little sailboat. Akash lives in India with his big happy family. When Akash grows up, he wants to be the world's greatest chef. And so life goes on. Hiro becomes an astronaut, much to his father's surprise. Abasi travels the world in his sailboat, and Akash opens up his own restaurant in his hometown.
Okay, this is taking too long and I don't want to bore you, so I'll save you some time by saying, he's just making up hypothetical environmental disasters with sad deaths to manipulate your emotions. And then he says,
these are a few hypothetical scenarios from various parts of the globe. While they may seem unrelated, they all share a common catalyst: climate change.
welcome to the left, enjoy your stay.
As 2017 begins and the United States presidency changes hands, it has become increasingly apparent that the new regime is full of climate change deniers and fossil fuel advocates.
Ah yes, the common, he thinks climate change is a hoax argument. And I love how you call the administration
The new regime,
as if he's some kind of authoritarian leader. He's totally not a leftist. He just teaches science. Trump can be many things. He's a good businessman, a horrible speaker at times, but a science denier he is not. In an interview with the New York Times, he even stated, I'm not denying climate change. And during his trip to the UK, he had a meeting with Prince Charles where they talked a lot about the climate. Trump spoke to an interviewer after and he said, he wants to make sure future generations have a good climate as opposed to disaster, and I agree. But didn't he say it was a hoax? Yes, he did, many years ago, and he retracted that statement. So, to say that he denies climate change today is disingenuous and a lie. All those sources you put on screen were no doubt leftist sources, but that's irrelevant. Next clip.
Let's start with a common misconception. When some people hear the term global warming, they'll point to an instance of colder than normal weather, like the Sahara Desert recently, and say, that's ridiculous, it's snowing here.
Okay, we're 2 minutes in and we've heard two straw man arguments. Give me a break. Has anyone really gone up to you and say, Al Gore big gay because snow? Well, no one says that. Most conservatives don't deny climate change. It's less of it doesn't exist and more like, yeah, it exists. What are you going to do about it that doesn't cripple the economy and send us 200 years back in the terms of electricity?
Over 97% of actively publishing climate scientists agree that climate warming trends over the past 100 years are extremely likely to have been caused largely by human activity.
Okay, let me stop you right there. I've heard the statistics so often it's infuriating. Most people agreed that DDT was great until some few people started protesting its use. Majority consensus doesn't mean truth, but this aside, this number isn't even accurate. Let's go over how the study was conducted. The number comes from a survey analysis by John Cook of the Global Change Institute, which I had to figure out myself because it wasn't cited in the video or its description. The claim is 97% of climate scientists agree that the main cause of global warming is human activity. An analysis of the data by David Henderson only found that 64 studies out of the 12,000 explicitly state that humans are the primary cause of global warming. Cook took the 64 studies here and added them to the studies where they said that the extent of human cause is undefined. 64 over 12,000 is 0.5%, which Henderson has stated to be the true figure, which is a lot further from 97%. Just a side note, I do encourage my viewers to read my sources. Don't just blindly listen to me. And if you think my logic or sources are flawed, I'm always open to criticism in the comments. But back to the video, what else do they have to say?
Climate change deniers tend to latch onto studies that disprove the trend, but you'll always notice that the studies are either not peer-reviewed, come from a known anti-science publisher, or come from a scientist in a completely unrelated field with an agenda of their own.
And, of course, no examples are given anywhere.
So, where does this problem come from? The largest contributing factor to climate change is the burning of fossil fuels. Oil, coal, and natural gas all release carbon dioxide into the atmosphere when burned.
Yeah, you want to know what else releases pollutants? Lithium mining for batteries, which are required for the unreliable sources we have for energy like solar and wind. Fossil fuels make up about 80% of our energy sources and make modern life as we know it possible. I think we need to consider this more before we risk modern life as we know it.
As of the end of 2016, carbon dioxide levels are up by nearly 405 parts per million, the highest in 650,000 years. Global temperature is up by 1.7 degrees since 1880, and 9 of the last 10 hottest years on record happened since 2000, the 10th being 1998. Arctic ice is shrinking at a rate of 13.3% per decade, and land ice is disappearing at a rate of 281 gigatons per year. Greenland ice loss doubled between 1996 and 2005, and finally, the global sea level has risen 7 inches in the last 100 years.
What? 7 inches in a century? So crazy, right? This is the only data he cited in the video, so I visited the site. It's from NASA. Seems okay. It is correct, but I noticed something. He neglected to mention how the temperature has changed since 1980, specifically in degrees. We started using fossil fuels on a large scale in about 1880. The site that this guy himself is using says the temperature has only risen 1.9 degrees Fahrenheit, less than 2 degrees in 150 years. And now, this is the part where he starts talking about the poor animals, the poor polar bears.
Of course, we've all heard that global warming affects the poor polar bears. But it's true, and it's severe. At the current rate of melting, which is likely to increase, the Arctic is projected to see its first ice-free summer by 2050. Imagine that. All of the ice. Gone.
Yeah, gone. There isn't anything we can do about it. But listen, just hear me out, leftists, okay? According to the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, there was actually a little ice age that ended about 170 years ago. It's warming up now. We actually have a little more ice than average. But the climate has still changed without human involvement, so we can assume that's still true today. So even if we were to bring human carbon emissions to zero, which is near impossible, the climate would still change. And this guy's also completely ignoring the fact that the Antarctic sea levels are increasing. Also from NASA.
At this rate, rising sea level puts coastal cities and islands at great risk.
Yeah, that's what the UN said in the 80s. Specifically, in 1989, the Associated Press released an article that said entire nations could be wiped off the face of the earth by rising sea levels if the global warming trend is not reversed by the year 2000. That was 2 decades ago. No nations are gone, and in addition, in 2006, Al Gore said that we'd have 10 years to fix the planet. 2006. And today, figureheads of the left like Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez are saying we have 12 years before humanity is completely extinct. They've predicted catastrophe after catastrophe before, and every single one of those predictions has been wrong.
Global warming will cause droughts and heat waves, which are already responsible for killing more people per year than floods, hurricanes, lightning, and tornadoes combined. It will aggravate the spread of disease. Warmer weather allows disease bearers to be active longer and further abroad. Warmer ocean temperatures will allow pathogens to flourish, as we've already seen with the widespread coral bleaching of the Great Barrier Reef. This coral houses 25% of all marine diversity, and the reef has already declined by 50% in the last 30 years. When the coral goes, we'll lose hundreds of thousands of species dependent upon it for shelter, which will collapse much of the marine food chain. Back on land, fishing will suffer, Droughts will destroy crops and livestock and create a water scarcity, pushing farmers and people in rural areas into the city. This will cause overcrowding and help spark civil wars that kill hundreds of thousands like it did in Syria. GDP is expected to plummet by 23% by 2100.
Any sources? And like I said, we can't really do anything about it. Also, drought deaths have been decreasing over the last century as CO2 emissions have been rising, but we don't need to talk about that.
Even if we stopped emitting greenhouse gases today, global warming would continue for at least several more decades since carbon dioxide can linger in the atmosphere for up to centuries.
Exactly my point. Even if we could achieve the impossible, the costs would far outweigh the benefits. Anyways, that's basically the whole video. He just goes on to say how we can save the world with leftist policies. So that's all I have to say for now. I hope you can go through the day while knowing that you can drive your car guilt-free.